Single dad was just buying milk when three men cornered a simple woman at the store entrance. The gun rose. Her eyes screamed for help. He had seconds to decide. His daughter waited outside, but he couldn't walk away. I couldn't let her die. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The rain hammered against the cracked pavement as Jake Morrison stood outside the convenience store, his worn jacket doing little to shield him from the cold November night. His daughter Emma waited in their old truck, her homework spread across the dashboard under the dim interior light. She was only 10 years old, but she already knew what it meant to wait patiently while her father scraped together enough money for groceries. Jake had been a single father for 3 years now. His wife Sarah had died in a car accident, leaving him alone to raise Emma. Every day was a battle against bills, rent, and the crushing weight of grief. But he never let Emma see him break. She was his reason to keep going, his reason to wake up every morning and face another day of struggle. The accident still haunted him. Sarah had been driving home from her nursing shift at the hospital. A drunk driver had run a red light. She died instantly. Jake had been home with Emma, reading her a bedtime story, completely unaware that his world was about to shatter. The police came to the door at midnight. He remembered Emma asking why the officers looked so sad. He remembered holding her as he told her that mommy wasn't coming home. He remembered her small voice asking if it was her fault. Those early days after Sarah's death were the darkest of Jake's life. He barely functioned. Friends and family helped with Emma while he stumbled through the fog of grief. But slowly, painfully, he learned to live again. Not for himself, but for Emma. She needed him. She needed stability, love, and a parent who could be strong even when everything felt broken. Jake took a job at Miller's Auto Repair. The pay wasn't great, but his boss understood his situation. If Emma was sick, Jake could leave early. If she had a school event, he could adjust his hours. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Barely enough. They lived in a small apartment on the edge of town. The walls were thin, the heating was unpredictable, and the neighborhood wasn't the safest. But it was home. It was theirs. Tonight was supposed to be simple. Buy milk, bread, and eggs. Get home before it got too late. Help Emma with her math homework. Tuck her into bed. The routine that kept them both sane. But fate had different plans. As Jake walked toward the store entrance, he noticed a woman standing near the door. She was small, plain-looking, wearing a faded blue coat that had seen better days. Her hands trembled as she clutched a shopping bag. Something about her seemed fragile, like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Jake nodded politely as he passed her. She gave him a weak smile in return. Inside the store, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Jake grabbed a basket and moved quickly through the aisles. He counted every dollar in his head, making sure he had enough. Milk was $3.50. Bread was $2. Eggs were $4.50. He had exactly $12 in his pocket. Enough for what they needed, with $2 left over. As he stood in line at the register, he heard raised voices near the entrance. His stomach tightened. He looked over and saw 3 men entering the store. They moved with purpose, their faces hard and angry. The woman in the blue coat was backing away from them, her eyes wide with terror. "Please," she whispered. "I don't have it. I need more time." "Time's up, Claire," one of the men growled. He was tall, with a shaved head and tattoos crawling up his neck. "You owe Victor $20,000. He's done waiting." Jake's instincts screamed at him to look away, to mind his own business. He had Emma waiting in the truck. He couldn't afford to get involved. But something in the woman's eyes stopped him. It was the same look Sarah had in those final moments before the accident. Pure fear. Helplessness. The tattooed man grabbed Claire's arm roughly. You're coming with us. Victor wants to have a conversation. No. Claire pulled back, her voice breaking. I told him I'd pay. My husband left me with his debts. I'm trying, I swear I'm trying. Not our problem, another man said coldly. Jake set his basket down. His hands were shaking, but his feet were already moving. He didn't think. He just acted. Hey, Jake called out, walking toward them. Let her go. The three men turned to look at him. The tattooed one laughed. Who the hell are you? Nobody, Jake said quietly. But I'm asking you to leave her alone. This doesn't concern you, friend. Walk away. Jake's jaw tightened. I can't do that. The store clerk had already ducked behind the counter, probably calling the police. But Jake knew the cops wouldn't arrive in time. He could see it in these men's eyes. They were professionals. They had done this before. Look at this hero, the tattooed man sneered. He released Claire and stepped toward Jake. You want to play knight in shining armor? Fine. We'll teach you a lesson too. Before Jake could respond, the man swung. Jake barely dodged the punch, stumbling backward. He wasn't a fighter. He was a mechanic, a father, a man who fixed cars and made breakfast for his daughter. But tonight, he had to be something more. The second man joined in, grabbing Jake from behind. Jake struggled, throwing an elbow that connected with ribs. The man grunted but didn't let go. Claire screamed. Stop. Please, just take me. Don't hurt him. But they weren't listening anymore. The tattooed man pulled something from his jacket. In the harsh fluorescent light, Jake saw the gun. Time seemed to slow down. The man raised the weapon, pointing it at Claire. Shut up, or I'll shut you up permanently. Jake didn't hesitate. He broke free from the second man's grip and threw himself forward. His body collided with Claire's, pushing her to the ground just as the gun went off. The sound was deafening. A sharp, burning pain exploded in Jake's side. He gasped, falling on top of Claire, shielding her with his body. Jake! Claire's voice seemed to come from far away. Oh God, you're bleeding. The three men froze, staring at what they had done. The tattooed man's face went pale. We need to go. Now. They ran, leaving Jake bleeding on the floor of the convenience store. Claire scrambled out from under him, her hands pressing against his wound. Stay with me. Please stay with me. Jake's vision blurred. He thought of Emma sitting in the truck, waiting for him. She had already lost her mother. She couldn't lose him too. My daughter, he whispered. In the truck. Outside. I'll get her, Claire promised, tears streaming down her face. But you have to hold on. Do you hear me? You have to hold on. The store clerk rushed over with towels, pressing them against Jake's wound. Blood soaked through almost immediately. Claire ran outside into the rain, her blue coat billowing behind her. Emma looked up from her homework when someone knocked on the truck window. She saw a strange woman with tears on her face. Are you Emma? Claire asked through the glass. Emma nodded slowly, confused. Your father needs you. Come with me. Emma's heart stopped. She threw open the truck door and ran through the rain, following Claire into the store. When she saw her father lying on the floor, surrounded by blood, she screamed. Daddy! Jake's eyes found hers. He tried to smile. I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm okay. But he wasn't okay. Emma could see that. She dropped to her knees beside him, taking his hand. It was cold. Why? Emma sobbed. Why did you do this? You could have died. Jake squeezed her hand weakly, his voice barely a whisper. I couldn't let her die. He coughed, pain shooting through his body. "Emma, I saw your mother's eyes in hers. That same fear. That same helplessness. I couldn't let her die. Not when I could do something. Not when I had the chance to save her." The ambulance arrived 7 minutes later. The paramedics worked quickly, loading Jake onto a stretcher. Claire and Emma rode with him to the hospital, both of them holding his hands as the sirens wailed through the night. In the emergency room, a team of doctors surrounded Jake. The bullet had entered his side, missing his vital organs by inches. But he had lost a lot of blood. The next few hours would be critical. Emma sat in the waiting room, her small body shaking with fear. Claire sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Your father is the bravest man I've ever met," Claire whispered. "He didn't know me. He had no reason to help me. But he did it anyway." "Who were those men?" Emma asked, her voice small. Claire's face darkened. "My husband died 2 years ago. Before he died, he borrowed money from a very dangerous man named Victor Kaine. I didn't know about the debt until after the funeral. Victor doesn't care that my husband is dead. He wants his money, and he'll hurt anyone to get it. $20,000. Emma remembered hearing that number. Claire nodded miserably. "I've been working 3 jobs, trying to pay it back. But it's never enough. Victor keeps adding interest. Tonight, he sent his men to take me. To use me as an example." Emma's hands clenched into fists. "They shot my dad. They can't just get away with that." "The police are looking for them," Claire said. "But men like Victor, they're good at hiding. Good at making problems disappear." Hours passed. The waiting room slowly emptied as other families received news about their loved ones. But Jake remained in surgery. Emma refused to sleep, even though her eyes were heavy. Claire stayed with her through it all, buying her hot chocolate from a vending machine, telling her stories about her own childhood to distract her. Finally, as dawn broke through the hospital windows, a doctor emerged. He looked exhausted but relieved. "He's going to make it," the doctor announced. "The surgery was successful. He'll need time to recover, but he's stable." Emma burst into tears, this time from relief. Claire hugged her tightly, both of them crying together. They were allowed to see Jake an hour later. He was pale and connected to various machines, but his eyes were open. When Emma entered the room, his face lit up. "Hey, princess," he whispered hoarsely. Emma ran to his bedside, careful not to bump his injuries. "You scared me, Daddy. You really scared me. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." Claire stood in the doorway, unsure if she should enter. Jake noticed her and gestured weakly for her to come closer. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Thank you for saving my life. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. You almost died for me." Jake's eyes grew distant for a moment, then focused on her face. "I couldn't let her die," he whispered, as if reliving that terrible moment. "When I saw that gun pointed at you, I just reacted. I couldn't let her die. My wife. I lost her because I wasn't there. This time, I was there. This time, I could do something." Fresh tears streamed down Claire's face. "You don't even know me." Jake shook his head slightly. "You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone should have done." "But nobody else did," Claire pointed out. "Everyone in that store looked away. But you didn't. You put yourself between me and that bullet. You're a hero." "I'm not a hero," Jake said tiredly. "I'm just a father who wants to teach his daughter that we help people when they need it. Even when it's hard. Even when it's dangerous." Emma squeezed her father's hand. "You're my hero, Daddy." Jake smiled, but it faded quickly. "Those men. They'll come back for you, won't they?" Claire's face fell. "Probably. Victor doesn't give up easily. Then we need to do something about it, Jake said with determination in his voice, despite his weakness. We need to stop him. Over the next few days, as Jake recovered in the hospital, Claire told them everything about Victor Kaine. He ran a loan sharking operation throughout the city, preying on desperate people who had nowhere else to turn. He charged impossible interest rates and used violence to enforce payment. The police knew about him, but he was careful. He never got his own hands dirty, always using intermediaries. Claire's husband had borrowed the money to pay for experimental cancer treatments. He had hoped to beat the disease, make the money back, and pay Victor. But the cancer won. And Claire was left with a debt she could never hope to repay. There has to be evidence, Jake said from his hospital bed. Records, witnesses, something that could bring him down. I tried, Claire admitted. I went to the police. But without proof, there's nothing they can do. And anyone who testifies against Victor ends up in the hospital. Or worse. Emma had been listening quietly. What if we got the proof? What if we found evidence? Tommy's compromised, he said into the radio. Then he made a decision. He couldn't let Tommy get hurt because of their plan. He called the number Claire had given him earlier. The direct line to Victor's office. Victor's phone rang. He picked it up, still staring at Tommy. What? This is Jake Morrison, Jake said. The man who took your bullet meant for Claire Donovan. I have recordings of everything happening right now. Tommy Chen has photographed your records. And I've sent copies to 3 different news stations with instructions to release everything if I don't check in every 30 minutes. Victor's face darkened. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your email. I sent you a sample 2 minutes ago. Victor gestured to one of his men, who pulled out a laptop. After a moment, the man's face went pale. He showed Victor the screen. Jake had indeed sent him copies of photos Tommy had taken. What do you want? Victor asked coldly. Let Tommy go. Forgive Claire's debt. And turn yourself in to the police. Victor laughed, but it was without humor. And if I don't? Then tomorrow morning, everyone in this city will know exactly who you are and what you've done. Your business will be destroyed. Your protection will vanish. How long do you think you'll last when all your enemies know you're vulnerable? There was a long silence. Victor was calculating, weighing his options. Finally, he spoke. You've made an enemy today, Morrison. This isn't over. Maybe not, Jake agreed. But it's over for tonight. Let Tommy walk out of there. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Victor made a gesture. His men stepped back. Tommy moved carefully past them, not turning his back until he was out the door. He ran down the stairs and out of the building, his heart hammering. Outside, Claire saw Tommy emerge. She stopped struggling against the guards, relief flooding through her. Tommy jogged to the van and climbed inside. I got everything, he panted. Photos, documents, names. This is enough to bring him down. Jake drove away from the red door, his hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. They picked up Claire a block away. She climbed into the van, and the 3 of them sat in silence for a moment. We did it, Claire whispered. We actually did it. But Jake knew better. This is just the beginning. Now we need to make sure this evidence reaches the right people. And we need protection. Victor won't let this go. They drove to the police station. Tommy had a contact there, Detective Sarah Rodriguez, who had been trying to build a case against Victor for months. They handed over everything. Detective Rodriguez's eyes widened as she reviewed the evidence. This is incredible. This is exactly what we needed. With these records, we can tie Victor to dozens of crimes. Extortion, assault, money laundering. He's done. How long before you can arrest him? Jake asked. I can get a warrant by morning. We'll raid his club at dawn. What about protection for us? Claire asked nervously. He knows we were involved. Rodriguez nodded. I'll arrange for protective custody for all of you until Victor is behind bars. That night, Jake, Emma, Claire, and Tommy stayed in a safe house provided by the police. Emma had been brought there by Mrs. Patterson, who had been informed of the situation. When Emma saw her father walk through the door, safe and whole, she ran into his arms. You did it, Daddy, she said, hugging him tight. We did it, Jake corrected. All of us together. At dawn, police descended on the Red Door. Victor Kaine was arrested along with 15 members of his organization. The evidence was overwhelming. News stations ran the story all day, showing Victor being led away in handcuffs. The city celebrated the fall of one of its most notorious criminals. But the real story happened quietly, in a small apartment where Jake and Emma returned after Victor's arrest. Claire came with them. She had nowhere else to go, and Jake had insisted she stay until she got back on her feet. I don't know how to thank you, Claire said, sitting at their kitchen table. You gave up so much for me. You nearly died. Jake shook his head. I didn't give up anything I wouldn't have given anyway. That's what we do. We help people. I want to help people too, Emma announced. When I grow up, I want to be like you, Dad. I want to help people who need it. Jake smiled, ruffling her hair. You already are like me, Princess. You're brave and kind and you care about others. That's all that matters. Over the following weeks, life slowly returned to normal. Victor Kaine was indicted on 37 counts. His entire organization crumbled. The people he had extorted for years came forward, one by one, telling their stories. The district attorney called it the biggest organized crime case in the city's history. The trial lasted 3 months. Jake, Claire, and Tommy all testified. They told the jury about that night, about the gun, about the bullet. They presented the evidence Tommy had photographed. They brought forward other victims who had suffered under Victor's cruelty. Victor's lawyers tried everything. They claimed the evidence was obtained illegally. They attacked the credibility of the witnesses. They painted Victor as a legitimate businessman being persecuted by criminals. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours before returning with a guilty verdict on all counts. When the judge sentenced Victor to 25 years in prison, Claire cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. The nightmare was finally over. Jake squeezed her hand, and she squeezed back. Emma, who had been allowed to attend the sentencing, watched with wide eyes as the man who had caused so much pain was led away in handcuffs. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them. Cameras flashed. Microphones were thrust in their faces. Jake tried to shield Emma from the chaos, but she surprised him. My dad is a hero, Emma told the reporters, her young voice clear and strong. He saved someone's life. And then he helped make sure the bad guy couldn't hurt anyone else. That's what heroes do. Claire found a new job at a local bakery. The owner had heard her story on the news and wanted to help. She moved into a small apartment near Jake and Emma's place. The 3 of them had become family, bound together by that terrible night and their shared bravery. Jake returned to work at the mechanic shop. His boss had held his job while he recovered, and his co-workers welcomed him back as a hero. But Jake didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a father who had done what any father should do. Protect those who needed protecting. One evening, 3 months after the shooting, there was a knock on Jake's door. He opened it to find Detective Rodriguez standing there with an envelope. What's this? Jake asked. Reward money, Rodriguez explained. The city is offering rewards for information leading to the arrest of major criminals. Between you, Tommy, and Claire, you're looking at $50,000. Split 3 ways, that's about $16,000 each. Jake stared at the envelope. $16,000. It was more money than he had seen in years. It would cover Emma's school expenses, fix the truck, maybe even put some away for her college fund. We didn't do it for money, Jake said quietly. I know, Rodriguez smiled. But you deserve it anyway. You risked everything to help someone you didn't even know. That's rare. That's special. After she left, Jake sat at the kitchen table with Emma. He spread the money out between them. What should we do with it? He asked her. Emma thought for a moment. We should help people. Like people helped us. Jake's eyes grew wet. His daughter, so young, already understood what truly mattered. What did you have in mind? There are other people like Claire, right? People who need help getting away from bad people. Maybe we could help them. And so they did. Jake, Claire, and Tommy used the reward money to start a small fund. They called it Sarah's Shield, named after Jake's late wife. It provided emergency assistance to people trapped in situations like Claire's. They helped people escape debt traps, provided safe housing, connected them with legal aid. Word spread quickly. Within a year, Sarah's Shield had helped 37 families. News stations did stories about them. Other people donated money. The fund grew. Emma volunteered at the office after school, answering phones and greeting people who came in for help. She saw firsthand the difference they were making. She saw families reunited. She saw people crying with relief. She saw hope return to eyes that had lost it. On the anniversary of the shooting, Jake visited the convenience store where it had all happened. The bullet hole in the floor had been repaired, but he knew exactly where it had been. He stood there for a moment, remembering the pain, the fear, the sound of the gunshot. The store manager recognized him. Mr. Morrison, the man said, approaching with respect in his eyes. I never got to properly thank you. What you did that night, it changed everything for me too. I saw you put yourself between that woman and a bullet. I was hiding behind the counter, terrified. You showed me what real courage looks like. Jake shook his hand. You called the ambulance. You probably saved my life. And you saved hers, the manager replied. We all play our part, I suppose. But he also remembered Claire's face when she realized she was going to be okay. He remembered Emma's pride when they started Sarah's Shield. He remembered every person they had helped since then. A young woman approached him. She was nervous, clutching a small child's hand. Are you Jake Morrison? She asked hesitantly. I am. I saw you on the news. I heard about Sarah's Shield. I need help. My husband, he borrowed money from some bad people. They're threatening us. I don't know what to do. Jake smiled gently. Come with me. We'll figure it out together. As he walked out of the store with the woman and her child, Jake thought about that night. About the choice he had made. About the bullet he had taken. About everything that had followed. He had told Emma the truth. He wasn't a hero. He was just a father trying to teach his daughter the right way to live. To help people. To stand up when others sit down. To risk something when someone else needs it. But maybe that was what a hero really was. Not someone who sought glory or recognition. But someone who simply couldn't walk away when another person was in trouble. That night, tucking Emma into bed, she asked him the question she had asked 100 times before. Dad, why did you do it? Why did you save Claire? And Jake gave her the same answer he always gave. The only answer that mattered. The words that had defined that terrible, beautiful night. Because I couldn't let her die, Emma. His voice was soft but firm. When I saw that gun pointing at Claire, everything else disappeared. I didn't think about myself. I didn't think about the danger. I just knew that I couldn't let her die. Because when you have the power to help someone, you have the responsibility to help them. Even if it costs you something. Even if it's hard. That's what being human means. That's what love means. Emma hugged him tight. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Princess. Always. As Jake turned off the light and closed her door, he heard the phone ring. Another person in need. Another chance to help. Another opportunity to make a difference. He picked up the phone. Sarah's Shield. This is Jake. How can I help you? And somewhere in the city, Claire Donovan sat in her apartment, looking at a photo of Jake, Emma, and herself. They were smiling, their arms around each other. A family not of blood, but of choice. Of sacrifice. Of love. She had been saved that night. Not just from Victor's men, but from despair. From loneliness. From the belief that the world was only cruel and cold. Jake Morrison had taken a bullet for her. But more than that, he had shown her that goodness still existed. That people still cared. That one person's courage could change everything. She wiped tears from her eyes and stood up. She had work to do at Sarah's Shield tomorrow. People to help. Lives to save. Because that's what they did now. All of them. Jake, Emma, Claire, and Tommy. They helped people. They stood between the innocent and the cruel. They were proof that even in the darkest moments, light could break through. And it all started with one simple choice. One moment of courage. One father who couldn't walk away when someone needed help. The bullet wound on Jake's side had healed, leaving a scar. But it was a scar he wore with pride. A reminder of the night he became more than just a mechanic, more than just a single father. The night he became someone who changed the world, one act of kindness at a time. Sometimes, late at night when Emma was asleep, Jake would touch the scar and remember. He would remember the cold rain, the fluorescent lights of the store, Claire's terrified eyes, the deafening sound of the gunshot. He would remember the pain, yes, but also the clarity. In that split second when he threw himself in front of that bullet, everything had made sense. All the suffering after Sarah's death, all the struggles, all the lonely nights wondering if he was doing enough for Emma. It had all led to that moment. That choice. Claire often visited them for dinner. She had become like family, like the sister Jake never had, like the aunt Emma had always wanted. They would sit around the small kitchen table, sharing meals and stories and laughter. Claire would bring fresh bread from the bakery where she worked. Emma would show her drawings from school. And Jake would watch them both, feeling a warmth in his chest that he thought he had lost forever when Sarah died. One evening, as they cleaned up after dinner, Claire turned to Jake with tears in her eyes. I was going to die that night, she said quietly, so Emma wouldn't hear. If you hadn't been there, I would be dead. Those men would have killed me. And now look at us. Look at what we've built. Sarah's Shield has saved so many lives. Your bravery didn't just save me. It saved all of them too. Jake dried his hands on a dish towel, thinking carefully before responding. Sarah used to say that we're all connected. That when we help one person, we create ripples that spread out and touch others we'll never even meet. I didn't understand what she meant back then. But I do now. She would be so proud of you, Claire whispered. Of both of you. Jake looked over at Emma, who was drawing pictures at the table. She was sketching hearts and stars, her tongue poking out in concentration just like Sarah used to do. I hope so. I really hope so. As rain continued to fall on the city that night, washing away the dirt and grime, Jake Morrison slept peacefully. His daughter was safe. His friends were protected. And tomorrow, they would wake up and help someone else. Because that's what heroes do. Not because they're special. But because they choose to be. And that choice, made over and over again, was what changed everything. 3 years had passed since that fateful night, but the memory remained crystal clear. Jake no longer worked at the mechanic shop. Sarah's shield had grown so much that he now worked there full-time, coordinating rescue operations for people trapped in dangerous situations. Emma was 13 now, volunteering every weekend, her mother's compassion shining through her young face. On quiet Sunday mornings, Jake would take Emma to visit Sarah's grave. They would bring flowers and tell her about their week. About the people they had helped. About the lives they had saved. And Jake would silently thank her for teaching him what it meant to truly love someone. To love them so much that you would risk everything for a stranger, because that stranger was someone's daughter, someone's mother, someone's Claire. The scar on his side would always remind him. Not of pain, but of purpose. Not of what he had lost, but of what he had found. In saving Claire, he had saved himself. He had found his way back from the darkness of grief. He had shown Emma that even in a world full of cruelty, kindness could still win. And that was worth every scar.